Tonight, let us wander not through the pages of a history book, but through the luminous mind of Leonardo da Vinci, a man whose genius was a river that flowed through time itself. Painter, inventor, scientist, and philosopher, he was the very soul of the Renaissance spirit made manifest. Close your eyes now and step into his world, a place where the gears of flying machines turn in silent harmony beside portraits of timeless, enigmatic beauty. Let the story of this extraordinary man be the blueprint for your dreams. Leonardo da Vinci was born on the 15th of April, 1452, in the small Tuscan village of Vinci, Italy. The illegitimate son of a notary and a peasant woman, his cradle was the countryside itself, surrounded by rolling hills, ancient olive groves, and the soft, golden light of Italy. From his earliest days, he possessed an insatiable curiosity, a hunger to understand the world not through words, but through sight and touch. He would spend hours sketching the secret lives of animals, the intricate architecture of plants, and the shifting moods of the landscape, all in meticulous, loving detail. Without a formal education in Latin or Greek, the scholarly languages of his era, Leonardo chose nature as his great teacher. He would collect insects to study the iridescence of their wings. He would follow the flight of birds, seeing in their patterns a key to unlock the sky, and he would dissect animals, fascinated by the elegant mechanics of bone and sinew. This profound, reverent observation of the world would later shape both his breathtaking masterpieces and his groundbreaking inventions. At the age of 14, Leonardo was sent to Florence, the vibrant, beating heart of Italy's artistic world. There, he was apprenticed to Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the most renowned painters and sculptors of the time. In Verrocchio's bustling workshop, a universe of creation, he learned the sacred fundamentals of painting, sculpture, and mechanical design, honing his skills alongside other young men who would also leave their mark upon the age. Legend whispers that when Leonardo painted an angel in Verrocchio's Baptism of Christ, his work was so imbued with a divine, ethereal quality that his master, humbled, vowed never to paint again. The young apprentice had already become the master. Florence was a symphony of creativity and intellectual awakening, and Leonardo thrived in its every note. He conducted endless experiments with perspective, anatomy, and the very nature of light, constantly refining his techniques. His notebooks from this period are a window into his soul, revealing a profound fascination with the human form. They are filled with intimate studies of muscles in motion, the fleeting landscape of facial expressions, and intricate sketches of hands, an obsession that would follow him for his entire life. Among Leonardo's legion of masterpieces, none is more famous, more mysterious than the Mona Lisa. Painted between 1503 and 1519, this enigmatic portrait of a woman with an elusive, ghostly smile has captivated the world for centuries. The secret to her allure lies in Leonardo's mastery of sfumato, a technique that softens the transitions between colors and tones, creating a depth so lifelike she seems to breathe. Her eyes, filled with an ancient knowledge, seem to follow you, her expression shifting subtly with the changing light. Was she smiling? Was she hiding a secret? The mystery of her expression has been a puzzle for art lovers for generations. Leonardo carried the painting with him wherever he went, making tiny adjustments until his final days. Today, it remains one of the most celebrated and studied works of art in history, housed in the Louvre Museum in Paris, a quiet enigma in a bustling world. Another of Leonardo's great triumphs is The Last Supper, painted on the walls of the convent of Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan. Unlike traditional, static depictions of the biblical scene, Leonardo chose to capture the single, shattering moment when Jesus tells his disciples that one of them will betray him. The painting is a symphony of human emotion. Shock, disbelief, and sorrow ripple through the figures, each reacting in his own deeply personal way. Leonardo's lifelong study of human gestures and expressions brings an unparalleled, heart-wrenching realism to the scene. Unfortunately, his experimental fresco technique caused the painting to deteriorate over time, but even in its faded, ghostly state, The Last Supper continues to be one of the most revered artworks in the world, a frozen moment of divine tragedy. Leonardo's genius, however, could not be contained by canvas or plaster. His notebooks, over 13,000 pages of sketches, designs, and observations, reveal a mind that soared centuries ahead of its time. He designed flying machines inspired by the elegant architecture of birds' wings. He envisioned early concepts for submarines and armored tanks, and he explored human anatomy with a precision that was both scientific and reverent. One of his most famous sketches, Vitruvian Man, represents the ideal human proportions based on the writings of the Roman architect Vitruvius. This iconic drawing symbolizes Leonardo's core belief in the divine harmony between art and science, showing how the human body itself follows the elegant, silent laws of mathematics. Though many of his inventions were never built, his ideas laid the foundation for future generations of engineers, architects, and scientists. His curiosity was a universe without end, and his relentless pursuit of knowledge remains an inspiration to this day. In his later years, Leonardo moved to France at the invitation of King Francis I, who admired him not only as an artist but as a visionary thinker. He settled in the Château du Clos-Luz, where he continued his studies, surrounded by peaceful gardens. Even in his final days, Leonardo's mind never ceased its exploration. He passed away on May 2, 1519, at the age of 67, leaving behind a legacy that would forever shape the course of art, science, and human understanding. As our journey through Leonardo's world comes to an end, take one last look at the pages of his notebooks, filled with endless ideas and soaring possibilities. He once wrote, "Learning never exhausts the mind." His insatiable curiosity reminds us that knowledge and imagination are as limitless as the night sky. Tonight, let the spirit of Leonardo da Vinci inspire your dreams, filling them with wonder, invention, and the timeless beauty of art and discovery. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of Renaissance wonders. Michelangelo, the master of marble and divine vision. Tonight, let us step into the world of Michelangelo Buonarroti, a man whose hands did not merely shape stone, but revealed the very soul of the Renaissance. Sculptor, painter, architect, and poet, he saw divine beauty sleeping in raw marble and breathed life into it with the might of his will. Close your eyes and journey through the corridors of history, where his masterpieces continue to stand, eternal and awe-inspiring. Michelangelo was born on March 6, 1475, in Caprese, Italy, though he was raised in Florence, a city that would become the heart of his artistic legacy. From a young age, he displayed an extraordinary, almost fated talent for drawing and sculpting, much to the dismay of his father, who wished for him to pursue a more stable career. At 13, he became an apprentice in the workshop of the great artist Domenico Ghirlandaio. Soon after, he was taken under the wing of Lorenzo de' Medici, Florence's most powerful patron, where he was introduced to humanist scholars, poets, and philosophers. This environment nurtured his fierce intellect and honed his artistic genius. At just 26 years old, Michelangelo sculpted David, a towering masterpiece of Renaissance art. Carved from a single block of marble that had been discarded by previous sculptors, Michelangelo saw potential where others saw only ruin. Over 2 years, he chiseled every sinew and vein with breathtaking precision. Standing at over 17 feet tall, David captures the charged moment just before battle, his expression filled with a quiet, powerful determination. The sculpture became a symbol of Florence's resilience and strength, admired by all who stood before its magnificence. Even today, it remains one of the greatest sculptures ever created, a testament to Michelangelo's unparalleled skill. In 1508, Michelangelo was summoned by Pope Julius II to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City, a task he initially resisted, believing himself to be a sculptor rather than a painter. Yet, over 4 years working mostly alone, he created one of the most magnificent works of art in human history. The frescoes stretch across 12,000 square feet, depicting biblical stories from the book of Genesis, with the creation of Adam at its heart. The moment when God's hand nearly touches Adam's outstretched fingers has become one of the most iconic images in art. Despite the physical strain of painting for hours while lying on his back, the result was a vision of divine beauty. When unveiled in 1512, the world stood in awe, and to this day, millions travel to Rome just to gaze upon it. Decades after painting the ceiling, Michelangelo returned to the Sistine Chapel to create the Last Judgment on its altar wall. This monumental fresco, completed in 1541, portrays the second coming of Christ and the fate of souls, swirling in a dramatic vision of salvation and damnation. Unlike his earlier works, the Last Judgment is darker, more intense, reflecting Michelangelo's deepening spirituality and the turbulent times in which he lived. The muscular figures, twisting in anguish and ecstasy, showcase his mastery of human anatomy and emotion. In his later years, Michelangelo turned his genius to architecture, designing the magnificent dome of St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. Though he did not live to see its completion, his vision shaped one of the most iconic landmarks in the world. His architectural designs combined grandeur with harmony, ensuring that his influence would extend beyond sculpture and painting. His dome, rising above the eternal city, remains a symbol of human ingenuity and faith. Michelangelo continued to work until his final days, sculpting the Rondinini Pieta, a deeply personal and unfinished work that depicted the sorrow of the Virgin Mary holding Christ. Unlike his early sculptures, this piece was rougher, more expressive, perhaps a reflection of his own aging hands and contemplation of mortality. He passed away on February 18, 1564, at the age of 88, leaving behind a legacy that shaped the very foundation of Western art. As our journey through Michelangelo's world comes to an end, take one last look at the statues, frescoes, and grand structures that bear his touch. He once said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." His ability to see beauty within raw material reminds us that true vision is not just in the eyes, but in the soul. Tonight, let the spirit of Michelangelo inspire your dreams, filling them with strength, creativity, and the pursuit of greatness. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of Renaissance wonders. Sandro Botticelli, the painter of grace and myth. Tonight, let us step into the ethereal, dreamlike world of Sandro Botticelli, the artist who captured beauty, myth, and divine elegance like no other. His paintings shimmer with flowing lines, golden hues, and figures that seem to belong to a waking dream, embodying the very spirit of the Renaissance. Close your eyes and drift into a world where gods and mortals dance beneath celestial skies, where love and poetry live forever on canvas. Alessandro di Mariano di Vanni Filippi, known as Sandro Botticelli, was born in Florence in 1445. The city, bursting with art, philosophy, and intellectual awakening, was the perfect cradle for a budding painter. He trained under Fra Filippo Lippi, absorbing his master's delicate style and developing his own vision of grace and harmony. Under the patronage of the powerful Medici family, Botticelli flourished, his work soon adorning Florence's grandest halls, capturing the beauty and ideals of the Renaissance. Among Botticelli's masterpieces, none is as iconic as The Birth of Venus, completed around 1485. This breathtaking painting depicts the goddess Venus emerging from the sea on a shell, blown ashore by gentle zephyrs. Her golden hair flows like silk, her pose both graceful and pure, embodying the Renaissance's admiration for classical mythology and human beauty. The painting, filled with soft pastels and fluid lines, evokes a sense of serenity and wonder. Venus is not just a figure. She is an idea, a symbol of divine love, untouched and eternal. Another of Botticelli's great triumphs, Primavera, is a lush, enigmatic celebration of spring and renewal. Set in an enchanted grove, the figures Venus, the three Graces, Mercury, and Flora move in a rhythmic harmony, their expressions serene, their drapery flowing as if stirred by a soft breeze. The painting is a riddle of mythology and meaning, blending Neoplatonic philosophy with classical beauty. It is a dream of nature, fertility, and the cycles of life, woven into a delicate ballet of color and form. Despite his deep connection to mythological themes, Botticelli also painted religious works that conveyed intense emotion and spirituality. His Madonna and Child paintings radiate warmth and tenderness, while the mystical Nativity reflects a more solemn, almost apocalyptic vision of faith. Later in life, under the influence of the radical preacher Savonarola, Botticelli's art took on a darker tone. It is said that he even burned some of his paintings during the infamous bonfire of the Vanities, though this remains uncertain. As Florence changed and the High Renaissance brought new styles, Botticelli's graceful, linear approach fell out of favor. He lived his final years in relative obscurity, overshadowed by the monumental works of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. He passed away in 1510, buried in Florence with little fanfare. Yet centuries later, his name would rise again, his paintings celebrated as some of the most exquisite and poetic in art history. As our journey through Botticelli's world comes to an end, take one last look at his golden-haired figures, their gazes filled with quiet mystery. He painted not for fleeting trends, but for eternity, capturing moments of divine grace that still move us today. Tonight, let the spirit of Botticelli inspire your dreams, filling them with elegance, romance, and the soft glow of a Renaissance dawn. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of painted myths. Part 2, The Modern Visionaries. Pablo Picasso, the rebel who redefined art. Let us step into the bold and ever-changing world of Pablo Picasso, an artist who shattered conventions and reshaped the very essence of artistic expression. Painter, sculptor, printmaker, and visionary, he left behind a body of work as dynamic as the man himself. Close your eyes and wander through a world where colors, forms, and emotions collide, creating something entirely new. Pablo Picasso was born on October 25, 1881, in Malaga, Spain, to an artist father who recognized his son's extraordinary talent from an early age. By the age of 7, Picasso was already painting with remarkable skill, surpassing students twice his age. His formal training in classical techniques gave him the foundation he would later break apart to build something revolutionary. At just 13, he was admitted to the prestigious Academy of Fine Arts in Barcelona, a city that would remain close to his heart. It was here that Picasso began exploring beyond traditional methods, sketching scenes of everyday life and experimenting with bold, expressive lines. As a young man, Picasso moved to Paris, where he struggled with poverty but found inspiration in the city's bohemian spirit. Following the tragic death of a close friend, his paintings became melancholic, dominated by shades of blue and depicting figures of solitude and despair. This blue period, 1901 to 1904, produced masterpieces like The Old Guitarist, capturing the depths of human emotion. In contrast, his rose period, 1904 to 1906, was filled with warm pinks and oranges, portraying circus performers and harlequins in a more playful yet wistful manner. These early phases showed Picasso's ability to channel emotion into color, setting the stage for his groundbreaking work. In 1907, Picasso, alongside Georges Braque, pioneered Cubism, a movement that would forever change art. Inspired by African masks and Cézanne's geometric forms, he deconstructed reality, painting multiple perspectives at once. Les Demoiselles d'Avignon shocked the art world with its fragmented figures and bold, angular shapes. Cubism moved beyond representation. It was a language of abstraction, a way of seeing the world from every angle at once. As Picasso continued to refine the style, his works became more intricate, blending shapes, colors, and depth in entirely new ways. One of Picasso's most powerful works, Guernica, 1937, was created in response to the bombing of the Spanish town of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. The massive black and white painting, filled with distorted, anguished figures, became a timeless anti-war statement. The chaos, pain, and destruction captured in Guernica transcend its historical moment, serving as a universal reminder of the horrors of war. Even today, it remains one of the most striking political artworks ever created. Unlike many artists who find a signature style and stay within its bounds, Picasso was a master of reinvention. From the elegant neoclassicism of the 1920s to the surrealism-infused paintings of the 1930s, he continued to evolve throughout his life. He explored sculpture, ceramics, and printmaking, always pushing boundaries and refusing to be confined by expectations. His later works, often playful and spontaneous, reflected his enduring curiosity and passion for creation. Even in his later years, Picasso remained as prolific as ever, producing thousands of paintings, drawings, and sculptures. He once said, "It takes a long time to become young." His art, full of energy and mischief, embodied that sentiment. He passed away on April 8, 1973, at the age of 91, leaving behind an unparalleled legacy that continues to influence artists, thinkers, and dreamers worldwide. As our journey through Picasso's world comes to an end, take one last look at his canvases, filled with bold strokes, fractured forms, and limitless imagination. He once declared, "Everything you can imagine is real." His fearless creativity reminds us that art is not just about what we see. It's about what we feel and how we dare to express it. Tonight, let the spirit of Picasso inspire your dreams, filling them with color, passion, and the boundless freedom of artistic exploration. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of creative wonders. Rembrandt, the master of light and shadow. Tonight, let us step into the luminous, shadowed world of Rembrandt van Rijn, a painter whose mastery of light and shadow breathed life into his canvases. A storyteller through brushstrokes, he captured the human soul in its rawest form: joy, sorrow, and quiet contemplation. Close your eyes and journey through the golden glow of candlelit scenes and the deep, mysterious shadows of the heart. Rembrandt Harmenszoon van Rijn was born on July 15, 1606, in Leiden, Netherlands, a city rich in culture and learning. As the son of a miller, His early life was modest, but his talent for drawing was evident from a young age. His parents ensured he received a good education, and by 14, he was studying at the University of Leiden. However, the pull of art was too strong. He soon left the university to train as a painter under the guidance of Jacob van Swanenberg and later, Peter Lastman. By his early 20s, Rembrandt had established himself as an artist of great promise, his works already displaying an unparalleled ability to capture light and texture. In 1631, Rembrandt moved to Amsterdam, a bustling center of trade and wealth, where he found great success as a portrait painter. His ability to depict emotion and detail made him highly sought after among the city's elite. Commissions poured in, and his workshop thrived. It was here that he painted some of his most celebrated works, including the anatomy lesson of Dr. Nicolai's Tulp, a mesmerizing scene where light dances across the faces of surgeons as they examine the human form. The painting showcased Rembrandt's growing mastery of composition, storytelling, and dramatic lighting. In 1642, Rembrandt completed The Night Watch, one of the most revolutionary paintings of the Dutch Golden Age. Unlike traditional, static group portraits, this masterpiece was alive with movement and depth. The figures did not merely pose. They acted, interacting with one another in dynamic motion. Using his signature chiaroscuro technique, dramatic contrasts of light and shadow, Rembrandt created a composition filled with mystery and intensity. Though initially controversial for its unconventional approach, The Night Watch is now considered one of the most celebrated paintings in history. Despite his artistic triumphs, Rembrandt's personal life was marked by sorrow. He married Saskia van Wylenberg, who was his great love and muse, but tragedy struck as she died at a young age, leaving him in grief. His later relationships and financial troubles further deepened his struggles. Though his fortunes declined, his artistry never wavered. In his later years, he turned increasingly to self-portraiture, painting himself with unflinching honesty. These portraits, marked by deep wrinkles, tired eyes, and an introspective gaze, reflect a man who had seen both the heights of fame and the depths of despair. As Rembrandt aged, his work became even more profound. Paintings like The Jewish Bride and The Return of the Prodigal Son are imbued with an emotional depth that transcends time. He no longer sought perfection, but rather truth, humanity in its most vulnerable, touching form. His brushwork grew looser, his colors richer, and his compositions more intimate. He captured the essence of life in a way few painters ever have, making his later work some of the most moving in art history. Rembrandt's final years were filled with hardship, but he continued to paint until the very end. He passed away on October 4th, 1669, in Amsterdam, leaving behind a legacy that would influence generations of artists to come. His burial was modest, his financial struggles having taken their toll, but his art would live on forever, illuminating the depths of the human experience. As our journey through Rembrandt's world comes to an end, take one last look at his canvases, where faces glow with life and darkness hides unspoken stories. He once said, "Without light, no shadow can exist." His art reminds us that in every moment of darkness, light will always find a way to shine through. Tonight, let the spirit of Rembrandt inspire your dreams, filling them with depth, emotion, and the timeless beauty of the human soul. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of luminous wonders. Vincent van Gogh, the artist of passion and tragedy. Tonight, let us step into the swirling, dreamlike world of Vincent van Gogh, a man whose brushstrokes captured the turbulence of his soul and the beauty of the world around him. Though his life was fraught with hardship, his art glows with emotion, movement, and an intensity that continues to touch hearts across the world. Close your eyes and journey through golden fields, starry nights, and sun-drenched orchards, where color and feeling merge into masterpieces. Vincent van Gogh was born on March 30th, 1853, in the Netherlands, the son of a pastor. From an early age, he struggled with a deep sensitivity to the world, moving from job to job, working as an art dealer, a teacher, and even a preacher, before realizing that painting was his true calling. It wasn't until his late 20s that he fully devoted himself to art, moving from the subdued, earthy tones of his early works, such as the Potato Eaters, to the vivid, expressive colors that would define his later masterpieces. In 1886, Van Gogh moved to Paris, where he was introduced to Impressionism and Japanese prints. The city's vibrant art scene and the influence of artists like Monet and Toulouse-Lautrec encouraged him to experiment with color and light. His once dark palette exploded into shades of yellow, blue, and green, with bold, energetic brushstrokes that captured the very essence of life. During this time, he painted self-portrait with a straw hat, a striking image that reveals his intensity and evolving style. Though he still battled loneliness and despair, his paintings became brighter, filled with movement and warmth. Longing for peace, Van Gogh moved to Arles in 1888, hoping to create an artistic retreat. Inspired by the sun-drenched landscapes of southern France, he painted some of his most famous works, including sunflowers, the Yellow House, and Café Terrace at night. It was also in Arles that Van Gogh formed a turbulent friendship with fellow artist Paul Gauguin. Their time together ended in disaster when, in a fit of mental anguish, Van Gogh famously cut off part of his ear. This marked the beginning of his deepest struggles with mental illness, leading to his voluntary admission to the St. Paul de Mossel Asylum in 1889. While at the asylum, Van Gogh created one of the most iconic paintings of all time, The Starry Night. Swirling skies, luminous stars, and a quiet village below blend into a scene filled with movement and emotion. The painting is not just a landscape. It is a glimpse into Van Gogh's soul, a mixture of wonder and turbulence, hope and sorrow. In his letters to his beloved brother, Theo, he wrote of his longing for peace, yet his art continued to burn with passion, capturing the essence of nature and human feeling like no other. In 1890, Van Gogh moved to Auvers-sur-Oise, where he painted over 70 works in just a few months. His brushstrokes became even more urgent, his colors more intense. Works like Wheatfield with Crows hint at both beauty and sorrow, as if he knew his time was drawing to an end. On July 27, 1890, Van Gogh suffered a gunshot wound, the circumstances of which remain unclear. He died 2 days later with Theo at his side. His final words were, "The sadness will last forever." Van Gogh sold only a handful of paintings in his lifetime, yet today his works are among the most cherished in the world. His struggle, his passion, and his relentless pursuit of beauty continue to inspire artists and dreamers alike. He once said, "What would life be if we had no courage to attempt anything?" His life was a testament to that courage, to the power of expression, and to the eternal connection between art and the human soul. Tonight, let the spirit of Vincent van Gogh inspire your dreams, filling them with color, passion, and the beauty of the world as seen through his brilliant, unbreakable vision. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of starry nights. Claude Monet, the poet of light and color. Tonight, let us drift into the world of Claude Monet, the father of Impressionism, whose brush captured the fleeting magic of light and nature's ever-changing beauty. Through soft colors, shimmering reflections, and delicate brushstrokes, he invited the world to see through his eyes, a world of endless movement, warmth, and tranquility. Close your eyes and wander through fields of wildflowers, misty mornings, and golden sunsets, where art and nature become one. Claude Monet was born on November 14, 1840, in Paris, but his childhood was spent in Le Havre, a coastal town in Normandy. There, the ever-changing sea and sky became his earliest inspirations. He spent his days sketching and painting, fascinated by the way sunlight danced upon the water. Though his father wished for him to take over the family business, young Monet's artistic talent could not be ignored. At 16, he left school to pursue his passion, studying under the great painters of the time. In 1862, Monet moved to Paris to study at the Académie Suisse, where he met fellow artists Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Alfred Sisley, and Frédéric Bazille. Together, they sought to break free from the rigid rules of academic painting, preferring to capture life as it truly appeared: vivid, spontaneous, and filled with light. In 1874, Monet's painting impression, Sunrise, was exhibited, sparking both admiration and controversy. A critic mockingly called their style Impressionism, but the name stuck, and a revolutionary art movement was born. Monet and his peers abandoned dark, detailed realism in favor of quick, visible brushstrokes that captured fleeting moments: a sunrise, the sparkle of water, the softness of morning fog. In 1883, Monet settled in the small village of Giverny, where he created a sanctuary of beauty, a garden filled with lilies, weeping willows, and a Japanese bridge. His home became his greatest source of inspiration, a place where he painted tirelessly, observing how light transformed the landscape at every hour of the day. His Water Lilies series, painted over the last decades of his life, became a symphony of color and reflection, each canvas an immersion into pure tranquility. The rippling water, the soft hues of flowers, the dappled sunlight, they were not just paintings. They were emotions captured in pigment. Monet's obsession with light led him to a series of paintings that redefined artistic vision. Between 1892 and 1894, he painted Rouen Cathedral dozens of times, each canvas capturing the shifting glow of daylight against the ancient stone. From morning mist to fiery dusk, Monet proved that no single moment was ever the same. His dedication to capturing light's ephemeral beauty changed the way the world saw color, time, and perception itself. In his later years, Monet suffered from cataracts, which blurred his sight and altered his perception of color. His paintings became warmer, almost dreamlike, as he continued to work despite his failing eyesight. Even as his vision faded, his passion never did. He once said, "I'm still chasing the sun." With each stroke, he reached for the light, refusing to let darkness take hold. Claude Monet passed away on December 5, 1926, at the age of 86, leaving behind a legacy that forever changed the world of art. His home and gardens in Giverny remain a pilgrimage site for lovers of beauty, and his water lilies continue to bring peace to those who gaze upon them. Through his paintings, Monet gifted the world a new way of seeing, one that embraced imperfection, movement, and the fleeting magic of life's simplest moments. As our journey through Monet's world comes to an end, take one last look at the shimmering reflections, the soft blues and golden yellows, the brushstrokes that captured not just landscapes, but feelings. He once said, "My garden is my most beautiful masterpiece." And so, his garden and his art live on, forever blooming in the hearts of those who dream. Tonight, let the spirit of Monet inspire your dreams, filling them with color, serenity, and the gentle rhythm of light upon water. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of painted wonders. Frida Kahlo, the painter of pain and passion. Tonight, let us step into the bold and deeply personal world of Frida Kahlo, an artist whose canvases became a mirror of her soul. With each brushstroke, she transformed pain into poetry, suffering into strength, and life into an unbreakable force of color and emotion. Close your eyes and drift into a world where beauty and agony intertwine, where flowers bloom through scars, and where self-expression knows no boundaries. Frida Kahlo was born on July 6, 1907, in Coyoacán, Mexico, in the home that would later be known as La Casa Azul, the Blue House. From a young age, she faced adversity. At 6, she contracted polio, which left her with a lifelong limp. But it was at the age of 18 that her life changed forever. A tragic bus accident shattered her body, breaking her spine, pelvis, ribs, and legs. Confined to her bed for months, she found solace in painting. With a mirror placed above her bed, she became her own subject, embarking on a journey of self-discovery through art. She once said, "I paint myself because I am so often alone, and because I am the subject I know best." Though pain became her constant companion, it never silenced her. Instead, it gave her a voice that spoke through vivid colors, surreal imagery, and unflinching honesty. Frida's art was raw, unfiltered, and deeply autobiographical. Unlike the grand murals of her contemporaries, she painted intimate portraits filled with symbolism, pain, and Mexican culture. Her works fused indigenous folklore, surrealism, and personal storytelling, creating a style entirely her own. Through works like the Two Fridas and Self-Portrait with Thorn Necklace and Hummingbird, she laid bare her emotional and physical struggles, confronting love, loss, and identity with fearless honesty. She painted not for fame, but for survival, weaving her own history into each canvas with bold strokes and haunting detail. Frida's tumultuous relationship with Mexican muralist Diego Rivera became one of the most famous love stories in art history. He was 20 years her senior, a larger-than-life figure with an insatiable appetite for art and women. Their marriage was filled with both admiration and infidelity, devotion and heartbreak. Despite the pain he caused her, Diego remained Frida's greatest supporter. Together, they traveled between Mexico and the United States, immersing themselves in politics, art, and revolution. But Frida, forever longing for her homeland, once said, "I am not sick, I am broken, but I am happy to be alive as long as I can paint." Their love was a paradox, both destructive and deeply intertwined with their artistic inspirations. Even after their divorce and eventual remarriage, Frida never stopped loving Diego, writing, "I love you more than my own skin." Frida's body never healed, and the years of pain only deepened. She underwent countless surgeries, her spine held together by metal corsets, her legs wrapped in bandages. Yet she refused to be defined by her suffering. Instead, she painted it. In the broken column, she stands alone, her torso split open, revealing a crumbling column in place of her spine. Nails pierce her skin, yet her face remains stoic. She does not seek pity. She demands to be seen. Her paintings became her voice, shouting when she could not speak, standing tall when her body failed her. Through vibrant colors, surreal imagery, and raw emotion, she turned pain into power. Her suffering was undeniable, yet she chose to dress in traditional Tehuana clothing, adorning herself with flowers and jewelry, embracing her culture and identity despite her hardships. As her health deteriorated, Frida became more politically outspoken, embracing communist ideals and finding solace in her Mexican roots. She continued to paint despite her worsening condition, even attending her final exhibition in 1953 while lying in a hospital bed, refusing to let frailty steal her moment of triumph. In her final diary entries, she scrawled messages of resilience, writing, "Feet, what do I need you for when I have wings to fly?" Her defiance never wavered. Her artistry never dimmed. 1 year later, on July 13th, 1954, she passed away at the age of 47. Her last diary entry read, "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return. Yet in every brushstroke she remains." As our journey through Frida's world comes to an end, take one last look at her fearless self-portraits, her blooming flowers, her scars that became stories. She once said, "I paint flowers so they will not die, and neither will she." Frida Kahlo is more than an artist. She is an icon, a symbol of defiance, creativity, and resilience. Her paintings whisper to those who feel broken, reminding them that pain can be transformed into something beautiful, that even the deepest wounds can bloom. Tonight, let the spirit of Frida Kahlo inspire your dreams, filling them with color, passion, and the unbreakable will to create beauty from even the darkest of moments. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of painted emotions. Georgia O'Keeffe, the spirit of the desert and flowers. Tonight, let us drift into the boundless landscapes of Georgia O'Keeffe, an artist who saw the world with a vision unlike any other. Her sweeping desert horizons, towering flowers, and bold use of color captured the essence of nature's quiet power. She was a woman of independence, resilience, and creativity, shaping modern art with her fearless brushstrokes. Close your eyes and step into her world, where petals unfold like whispers and the desert hums with timeless beauty. Georgia O'Keeffe was born on November 15th, 1887, in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. From an early age, she saw the world differently, not in rigid details, but in flowing shapes and deep colors. As a child, she roamed the open fields, mesmerized by nature's simplicity, an influence that would later define her artistic style. At a time when women were expected to conform, Georgia chose a different path. She studied at the Art Institute of Chicago and the Art Students League of New York, but traditional methods never satisfied her. She longed to create something deeper, something that expressed emotion, movement, and the soul of nature. In the early 20th century, O'Keeffe's abstract charcoal drawings caught the eye of photographer and gallery owner Alfred Stieglitz, who exhibited them in his New York gallery. Their artistic connection soon turned into a deep love, and she moved to New York to be with him. Under his encouragement, O'Keeffe explored new forms, shifting between abstraction and natural imagery, painting the world as she felt it, rather than how it appeared. Her large-scale flower paintings became her signature, magnifying delicate petals into bold, immersive forms. Works like Black Iris and Jimson would transform the smallest details of nature into something grand and powerful. Critics debated their meanings, often interpreting them through a lens of femininity and sensuality, but O'Keeffe rejected such labels. "I paint what I see," she insisted. "I paint what I feel." Though New York had given her fame, it was the landscapes of the American Southwest that truly captured her heart. In 1929, O'Keeffe first traveled to New Mexico, where the vast desert, red cliffs, and sun-bleached animal bones spoke to her in a way no city ever could. The endless horizons, the ever-changing sky, and the silent, solitary beauty of the land became her sanctuary. She painted the desert not as an empty space, but as a place of movement, spirit, and life. Her series of cow skulls and sun-drenched mesas reflected both the fragility and strength of the world around her. She saw beauty in what others overlooked: the bones, the parched landscapes, the stark contrast of light and shadow. Eventually, she made New Mexico her permanent home, living in her beloved ghost ranch, where she painted from sunrise to sunset, her only companions the land and the wind. Georgia O'Keeffe was not just an artist. She was a pioneer. In a male-dominated art world, she forged her own path, refusing to be categorized or defined by others. She was a woman who lived on her own terms, embracing solitude and seeking inspiration in the wild, open spaces of the earth. Even in her later years, as her eyesight began to fail, she continued to create, turning to sculpture and experimenting with different mediums. Her passion for art never wavered, and neither did her love for the natural world. She once said, "To see takes time," and through her art, she invited the world to truly see, to slow down, to feel, to immerse in the simple, profound beauty of the world. O'Keeffe continued painting well into her 90s, her legacy already secure as one of the most influential modernist painters in history. She passed away in 1986, at the age of 98, leaving behind a body of work that forever changed the way we view nature, form, and color. Her flowers still bloom on museum walls, her desert landscapes still breathe with life, and her spirit, independent, fearless, and deeply connected to the world, lives on in every brushstroke she left behind. As our journey through O'Keeffe's world comes to an end, take one last look at the delicate folds of her flowers, the fiery hues of her deserts, the sky stretching infinitely above. She once said, "I found I could say things with color and shapes that I couldn't say any other way." And so she spoke through her paintings, telling stories of solitude, resilience, and a love for the earth itself. Tonight, let the spirit of Georgia O'Keeffe inspire your dreams, filling them with vast open landscapes, soft petals, and the quiet strength of a woman who saw the world in color and light. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of painted horizons. Part 3, The Architects of Reality. Albert Einstein, the dreamer of the universe. Tonight, let's wander through the winding corridors of science to explore the life of a man who forever changed how we understand the very fabric of reality. Settle in, close your eyes, and let the soothing tale of Albert Einstein unfold like a peaceful symphony of discovery. The spark of genius is often found in the most unassuming of places. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, in the small town of Ulm, Germany. His childhood was ordinary in many ways, filled with the sounds of his mother's piano and the whirring of machines from his father's electrical workshop. But Albert was not like other children. As a toddler, he was slow to speak. His silence is born not of a lack of understanding, but of deep contemplation. His family nicknamed him the Dopey One, because of his dreamy nature and his tendency to get lost in thought for hours. When he was 5, something magical happened. His father gave him a simple compass. Albert was mesmerized by how the needle always pointed north, as though an invisible, benevolent force were guiding it. This quiet moment of wonder marked the beginning of a lifelong obsession with the unseen mysteries of the universe. Einstein's schooling was far from smooth. He found the rigid structure and rote memorization of the German education system suffocating. His teachers often described him as lazy and inattentive, but what they failed to see was a young mind constantly asking, why? When Albert was 10, he began to devour texts on mathematics, physics, and philosophy at home, solving problems far beyond his school curriculum. By the time his family moved to Switzerland, he attended a more progressive school where his rebellious streak finally fueled his passion for science. In 1896, Einstein enrolled at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich. But even here, he found formal lectures uninspiring, often skipping classes to study on his own. His professors considered him a difficult student, yet behind the scenes, Albert was doing something extraordinary, working late into the night, falling deeply in love with the elegant architecture of physics. Despite graduating in 1900, job offers did not pour in. For a while, he lived in relative obscurity until, in 1902, he secured a job as a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. The job, though seemingly mundane, was a blessing. It gave him financial stability, minimal supervision, and ample time to think. He reviewed patent applications by day and explored the deepest mysteries of the universe by night. Then came 1905, the year historians call Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year. In a span of just 12 months, the lowly patent clerk published 4 groundbreaking papers that would reshape the course of modern physics. He explained the photoelectric effect, laying the foundation for quantum mechanics. He proved the existence of atoms by explaining Brownian motion. And most famously, he introduced his special theory of relativity, proposing that space and time are relative, not absolute. This led to the iconic equation E equals mc squared, showing that energy and mass are interchangeable. The world of science was stunned. How could this be? The answer lay in Einstein's unique ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. Where others saw rules, he saw possibilities. Throughout his life, Einstein experienced deep emotional highs and lows. His first marriage to fellow physicist Mileva Maric was strained by his growing fame, while his second marriage to his cousin Elsa provided a more stable companionship. Despite the turbulence of his personal life, he remained a devoted father, often writing letters to his sons, encouraging them to pursue knowledge and follow their passions. In 1915, Einstein completed his general theory of relativity, proposing that gravity is not a force, but a curvature of spacetime caused by massive objects. The scientific community was initially skeptical, but in 1919, an experiment during a solar eclipse confirmed his predictions. Overnight, Einstein became a global celebrity. He remained humble, however, joking that he was famous mainly because his hair made him easy to recognize. In the 1930s, with the rise of the Nazi regime, Einstein, being of Jewish heritage, left Germany and settled in the United States at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. He was more than a physicist. He was a humanitarian who used his fame to advocate for peace, civil rights, and nuclear disarmament. He was deeply troubled by the development of the atomic bomb, a weapon made possible in part by his own famous equation. Einstein passed away on April 18, 1955, at the age of 76. He left behind a legacy that continues to inspire generations. Perhaps his greatest legacy is not his brain, which was preserved and studied, but his ability to show the world that curiosity, imagination, and perseverance can change the course of history. And so, as you drift off to sleep, let the story of Albert Einstein remind you that even the most profound discoveries begin with simple questions and a childlike sense of wonder. Dream boldly, for who knows what mysteries your mind may uncover in the quiet of the night. Isaac Newton, the alchemist of the cosmos. Now, let us wander back in time to an age of wonder and scientific awakening, where a man gazed not just at falling apples, but into the very fabric of reality itself. This is the story of Sir Isaac Newton, a man whose curiosity and genius unraveled some of the greatest mysteries of nature. Get comfortable and let the soothing tale of discovery and brilliance unfold. In the stillness of rural England, a genius was born. Isaac Newton came into the world on December 25, 1642, in the small village of Woolsthorpe. Born prematurely, he was so small and frail that no one expected him to survive. But fate had different plans for the boy who would one day change the world. Newton's early life was marked by solitude and simplicity. His father had passed away before he was born, and his mother remarried when he was just 3, leaving him in the care of his grandparents. This separation left an indelible mark on young Isaac, who grew up shy, introspective, and often lost in thought. But even as a child, Newton's curiosity was a quiet fire. He spent hours building intricate models of windmills, kites, and sundials, often improving upon their designs with his own ingenious twists. Newton's schooling began at the King's School in Grantham. At first, he was an indifferent student, more interested in tinkering than in his studies. But when a schoolyard confrontation challenged his pride, Newton found his motivation. Determined to prove himself, he rose to the top of his class. In 1661, Newton enrolled at Trinity College, Cambridge, where his passion for mathematics and science truly ignited. He devoured the revolutionary ideas of Copernicus, Galileo, and Kepler, thinkers who questioned the traditional view of the cosmos. In 1665, Cambridge was closed due to the outbreak of the bubonic plague, and Newton returned home. It was during this period of isolation, often referred to as his Year of Wonders, that Newton laid the foundations for his most significant discoveries. The iconic story of the apple falling from the tree, while perhaps embellished, contains a kernel of profound truth. While observing nature in his family's orchard, Newton pondered the force that caused objects to fall. He had a sudden, brilliant insight. The same force governing the apple's fall also governed the motion of the moon and planets. This idea led to the formulation of the law of universal gravitation. During this time, Newton also made groundbreaking advances in calculus and optics. He discovered that white light is composed of a spectrum of colors, an insight he gained by passing sunlight through a glass prism. This discovery laid the foundation for the field of optics and revolutionized our understanding of light. In 1687, Newton published one of the most important scientific works in history, the Principia. This masterpiece laid out the laws of motion and the law of universal gravitation, providing a mathematical framework for understanding the physical world. His three laws of motion became the cornerstone of classical mechanics, explaining everything from the motion of planets to the trajectory of a cannonball. The Principia was a triumph of human intellect, and his work remained the foundation of physics for over 200 years. While Newton is remembered for his scientific achievements, he was also deeply interested in alchemy and theology. He spent decades studying ancient texts and conducting experiments, searching for hidden truths that extended beyond the material world. He saw God as a master architect whose laws governed the cosmos, and his scientific work was, in many ways, an attempt to understand the mind of God. Newton's rise to fame brought him both admiration and conflict, most famously with the German mathematician Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz over the invention of calculus. Despite such disputes, his contributions earned him widespread recognition. In 1705, he was knighted by Queen and becoming Sir Isaac Newton. Newton passed away on March 20th, 1727, at the age of 84. He was buried with great honor in Westminster Abbey. Though his physical body was laid to rest, Newton's legacy lives on in every equation, discovery, and scientific advancement that followed. As you close your eyes tonight, let Newton's story remind you that the universe is not just something to observe. It is something to explore, question, and dream about. Let his words echo gently in your thoughts. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And perhaps, in the quiet of the night, you too will find yourself wondering about the mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of the cosmos. Stephen Hawking, A Journey Through Time and Space. Now, let us drift beyond the stars, following the life of a man who taught us to dream not just of what lies within our reach, but of the boundless mysteries of the universe. Stephen Hawking's story is one of intellect, resilience, and a profound love for the unknown. Settle in and let his remarkable journey gently carry you through time and space. Genius often begins in the most ordinary of places. Stephen William Hawking was born on January 8, 1942, in Oxford, England, exactly 300 years after the death of Galileo. His parents valued education deeply, and their home was a place of books, ideas, and intellectual curiosity. But young Stephen wasn't always the prodigy you might expect. He was playful and curious, and loved taking things apart and putting them back together. Beneath this seemingly ordinary childhood lay a mind waiting to explode with ideas. When Stephen was a teenager, he developed a fascination with the stars. He would often lie in the garden, staring up at the heavens, wondering about the mysteries they held. He later enrolled at the University of Oxford at the age of 17 to study physics. After completing his degree, Stephen moved to the University of Cambridge in 1962 to pursue a PhD in cosmology. It was here that he found his intellectual playground, the study of black holes, time, and the origins of the universe. But just as his academic career was taking off, life dealt him an unexpected and devastating blow. At the age of 21, Stephen was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. Doctors told him that the condition would progressively weaken his muscles, eventually leaving him unable to move, speak, or even breathe on his own. They gave him a life expectancy of just 2 years. Devastated, Stephen withdrew from much of the world. But even in the darkest moments, something within him refused to give up. His love for science, his desire to understand the universe, and the support of his family and friends ignited a renewed sense of purpose. As he would later say, "While there's life, there's hope." During this difficult period, Stephen met Jane Wilde, a fellow student at Cambridge. They were married in 1965, and Jane became his pillar of strength. With her by his side, Stephen continued his work in cosmology with an intensity that astonished his peers. As his body weakened, his mind grew sharper. In the late 1960s, he made groundbreaking contributions to the study of black holes, theorizing that they emit radiation, a concept now known as Hawking radiation. This revolutionary idea suggested that black holes could slowly evaporate, challenging long-held assumptions about the universe. By the mid-1970s, Stephen had lost the ability to walk and began using a wheelchair. In 1985, a severe bout of pneumonia led to a tracheotomy that left him unable to speak. But this did not silence him. With the help of a speech-generating device, his robotic voice became iconic, a symbol of resilience and intellect. Despite these challenges, Stephen published his groundbreaking book, A Brief History of Time, in 1988. Written for a general audience, it became an international bestseller, inspiring millions to look up at the stars with renewed wonder. Throughout his career, Hawking continued to push the boundaries of what we thought possible, exploring the origins of the universe and the potential existence of parallel worlds. Hawking was also a pioneer in discussing the future of humanity, warning of the potential dangers of artificial intelligence and urging humankind to explore and colonize other planets. Despite his scientific fame, he had a playful side, appearing on popular TV shows and showcasing his wit and humor. Hawking's legacy extended beyond his scientific achievements. He was an advocate for disability rights, demonstrating that physical limitations need not define one's life. He inspired millions by showing that determination, creativity, and curiosity could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. On March 14, 2018, the same date as Albert Einstein's birth, Stephen Hawking passed away peacefully at the age of 76. He was buried at Westminster Abbey, near the graves of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin, a fitting resting place for a man who had stood on the shoulders of giants and become one himself. As you drift off to sleep, let Hawking's story remind you that curiosity knows no bounds. He once said, "Remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious." Tonight, let his words echo softly as you dream. Perhaps somewhere in the quiet of the cosmos, the answers to our greatest questions are waiting for you to find them. Sweet dreams, stargazer. Nikola Tesla, the master of lightning. And now, let us immerse ourselves in the story of a man whose brilliance lit up the world, both literally and figuratively. Nikola Tesla, the enigmatic inventor and visionary, was a dreamer who imagined a future far beyond his time. As you settle in, let his extraordinary journey gently electrify your imagination. Nikola Tesla was born at the stroke of midnight on July 10th, 1856, in Smiljan, a small village in what is now Croatia. His birth was accompanied by a violent thunderstorm, and according to family legend, the midwife exclaimed, "This child will be a child of light." Her words would prove prophetic. Tesla grew up in a household that valued both intellect and spirituality. His father was a Serbian Orthodox priest, and his mother was a deeply creative woman who invented small household devices and taught her children the importance of curiosity. From an early age, Tesla demonstrated an extraordinary memory and a fascination with nature. He could memorize entire books, solve complex mathematical problems in his head, and visualize mechanical inventions with astonishing clarity. During his studies at the Polytechnic School in Graz, Austria, his passion for electrical engineering fully ignited. One of Tesla's earliest fascinations was with alternating current, AC electricity, a concept that would eventually define his career. At the time, direct current, DC, championed by Thomas Edison, was the dominant form of electrical power. But Tesla saw the limitations of DC and dreamed of creating a more efficient system. In 1884, Tesla arrived in New York City with little more than a letter of recommendation and a head full of ideas. He went to work for none other than Thomas Edison. But the relationship between the two men was fraught with tension. Edison, practical and business-minded, valued results over theoretical brilliance, while Tesla was a visionary. The two clashed over their differing approaches. When Tesla proposed developing an AC system, Edison dismissed the idea, famously saying, "Fooling around with alternating current is a waste of time. Nobody will use it." Disillusioned, Tesla left Edison's company and soon partnered with George Westinghouse, an industrialist who believed in Tesla's vision. Their collaboration would ignite the war of the currents between Tesla's AC system and Edison's DC system. Tesla's work with Westinghouse led to a series of groundbreaking innovations. In 1893, they showcased the potential of AC at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, where they illuminated the entire fair. The defining victory came when Tesla's AC system was chosen to harness the power of Niagara Falls, one of the most ambitious engineering projects of its time. In 1895, the Niagara Falls power plant began transmitting electricity to Buffalo, New York, marking the dawn of a new era. AC was established as the dominant form of electrical power. But Tesla's mind never rested. He was already envisioning wireless transmission. In 1891, he patented the Tesla coil, a device that produced high-voltage electricity and became the foundation for many wireless technologies. Demonstrations of the coil were spectacular, with bolts of lightning dancing through the air. Tesla believed that one day, wireless technology could provide free energy to the world. His dream culminated in the construction of Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, a massive structure designed to transmit wireless electricity. but financial difficulties forced the project to shut down before it could be completed. Though Wardenclyffe was never fully operational, it laid the groundwork for future technologies such as radio and modern Wi-Fi. Despite his extraordinary achievements, Tesla's later years were marked by isolation and financial struggles. He was a man of eccentric habits, preferring to work late into the night, often surviving on little sleep. He had an aversion to pearls, obsessed over the number 3, and found solace in feeding pigeons in New York City's parks. He never married, believing his dedication to science left no room for romantic attachments. In 1931, on his 75th birthday, Time magazine featured him on its cover. Yet even with this recognition, Tesla lived modestly in a hotel room, often struggling to pay his bills. He passed away on January 7, 1943, in his room at the New Yorker Hotel. He died alone, but his legacy was anything but forgotten. He held over 300 patents and pioneered technologies that are fundamental to modern life. As you close your eyes tonight, let Tesla's story remind you that even the most daring dreams can spark revolutions. He once said, "The present is theirs. The future, for which I really worked, is mine." His words, like the currents he harnessed, continue to flow through our world. Tonight, let your imagination drift along those invisible currents, knowing that in every glowing light, every wireless signal, and every spark of creativity, a part of Tesla's dream lives on. Sweet dreams, dear inventor of wonder. Charles Darwin, the voyager of life. Now, let us set sail on a journey through time, guided by the life of a man whose discoveries reshaped how we understand life itself. Charles Darwin's story is one of exploration, observation, and an insatiable curiosity about the natural world. Relax, and let this gentle adventure carry you to distant shores and hidden wonders. In the stillness of rural England, nature gently called to a young mind. Charles Robert Darwin was born on February 12, 1809, in the small market town of Shrewsbury. His family was well-to-do, with a lineage of scientists and thinkers. Young Charles was curious from the start. He loved collecting insects, minerals, and shells, and would spend hours observing the plants and animals in the surrounding countryside. Despite his inquisitive mind, Darwin was not an exceptional student. He disliked the strict discipline of formal schooling and often daydreamed during lessons. In 1825, Darwin's father sent him to study medicine at the University of Edinburgh, but the sight of surgeries performed without anesthesia horrified young Charles, and he quickly realized that medicine was not his calling. Recognizing his lack of interest, Darwin's father suggested he pursue a career in the clergy. In 1828, Darwin enrolled at Christ's College, Cambridge. Surprisingly, it was here that he began to flourish. He befriended naturalists and botanists who encouraged his passion. One of his mentors, John Stevens Henslow, became a pivotal figure in Darwin's life, recommending him for an extraordinary voyage that would change the course of history. In 1831, at the age of 22, Darwin was invited to join the HMS Beagle as the ship's naturalist on a 5-year expedition to map the coastlines of South America. The voyage was both exhilarating and grueling. Darwin explored tropical rainforests, desolate volcanic islands, and vast plains teeming with wildlife. He collected thousands of specimens, documenting his observations with meticulous notes and sketches. But it was on the Galapagos Islands that the seeds of his revolutionary theory were truly sown. He observed that finches on different islands had distinct beak shapes, each adapted to the specific food sources available. This observation sparked a question that would guide his life's work. Could species change over time? When Darwin returned to England in 1836, He was no longer a wide-eyed young explorer. He was a seasoned naturalist. But it would take him over 20 years to refine his ideas and publish his most famous work. During this time, Darwin married his cousin, Emma Wedgwood, and settled into a quiet life at Down House in Kent. He spent years analyzing his findings, conducting experiments, and corresponding with other scientists. His health often faltered, but his determination never wavered. In 1859, Darwin published On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, a book that would forever change the scientific world. Its central idea was simple yet profound. Species evolve over time through a process of natural selection, where the traits best suited to an environment are passed on to future generations. Darwin's book was a scientific sensation, but it also sparked intense debate, challenging religious beliefs about the creation of life. Darwin himself was a cautious man and avoided public debates, preferring to let his work speak for itself. As time passed, the evidence for evolution continued to grow, and Darwin's theory became a cornerstone of modern biology. In his later years, Darwin led a peaceful life at Down House, surrounded by his family and the gardens he loved. He continued to write and publish, always driven by a sense of wonder about the natural world. He passed away on April 19, 1882, at the age of 73, and was buried in Westminster Abbey, near Isaac Newton. As you drift off to sleep, let Darwin's story remind you that the smallest observations can lead to the grandest discoveries. He once said, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." His words are a gentle reminder that life, in all its forms, is a story of adaptation, resilience, and wonder. Tonight, as the world quiets around you, imagine the soft rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, and the rhythm of waves lapping against distant shores. Let these sounds guide you into a dream where discovery never ends. Sweet dreams, explorer of life's mysteries. Marie Curie, the radiant pioneer. Let us walk alongside a woman who shattered barriers and illuminated the world, both literally and figuratively. Marie Curie's journey is one of perseverance, brilliance, and an unwavering dedication to science. As you settle in, let the warmth of her legacy gently light your path to sleep. Even the smallest spark can ignite a brilliant flame. Maria Sklodowska, known to the world as Marie Curie, was born on November 7, 1867, in Warsaw, Poland. The youngest of 5 children, she grew up in a household filled with books, intellectual discussions, and a love of learning. But Marie's early life was not without hardship. Her family struggled financially, and tragedy struck when her mother died of tuberculosis when Marie was only 10. Despite the pain, Marie found solace in her studies, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a dream to pursue higher education. A dream not easily attainable for women in 19th century Poland. But Marie was determined. She attended a secret underground school known as the Flying University, where women could learn in defiance of the oppressive system. There, her passion for science deepened, and she vowed to seek greater opportunities abroad. In 1891, at the age of 24, Marie moved to Paris to study at the prestigious Sorbonne. The transition was challenging. She lived in a small, unheated apartment and often survived on little more than bread and tea. But she immersed herself in her studies, earning degrees in physics and mathematics. It was during this time that she met Pierre Curie, a physicist whose gentle demeanor and brilliant mind captivated her. The two quickly formed a bond based on mutual respect and a shared love of science. They married in 1895 and became not only life partners but also research collaborators who would change the course of history. Marie and Pierre began their research on radioactive elements, inspired by the recent discovery of X-rays and the mysterious radiation emitted by uranium. They worked tirelessly in a makeshift laboratory, often under difficult conditions, grinding and processing tons of pitchblende to isolate the source of this strange energy. In 1898, their efforts paid off. The Curies discovered two new elements: polonium, named after Marie's homeland of Poland, and radium, which emitted an intense, glowing light. The term radioactivity was coined to describe the phenomenon they had uncovered. Marie's meticulous experiments proved that radioactivity was not the result of chemical reactions but a property intrinsic to certain elements. This breakthrough revolutionized physics and chemistry. In 1903, Marie and Pierre Curie, along with Henri Becquerel, were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. Marie became the first woman to receive a Nobel Prize. But even as she celebrated this monumental achievement, tragedy struck. In 1906, Pierre was killed in a street accident, leaving Marie devastated. She mourned deeply but found solace in continuing the work they had begun together. She took over Pierre's teaching position at the Sorbonne, becoming the first woman to teach at the prestigious university. Her research did not stop. In 1911, she was awarded a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for her discovery of radium and polonium. To this day, she remains the only person to win Nobel Prizes in two different scientific fields. During World War I, Curie saw an opportunity to apply her discoveries to medicine. She developed mobile X-ray units, known as little Curies, which were used on the battlefield to help doctors locate bullets, shrapnel, and fractures in wounded soldiers. Her work during the war saved countless lives and demonstrated her belief that science should serve humanity. Decades of exposure to radioactive materials took a toll on Curie's health. She developed aplastic anemia, a condition linked to prolonged radiation exposure. Despite her declining health, she continued to work, driven by her passion for discovery. Marie Curie passed away on July 4, 1934, at the age of 66. In 1995, her remains were moved to the Pantheon in Paris. She was the first woman to be laid to rest there based on her own merits. Her legacy is immeasurable. Her discoveries paved the way for advancements in cancer treatment, nuclear energy, and medical imaging. She once said, "One never notices what has been done. One can only see what remains to be done." These words, like her life, remind us to keep pushing forward. As you close your eyes tonight, let Curie's story remind you that even in the darkest moments, knowledge can be a beacon. Picture the glow of radium, not as something dangerous, but as a symbol of curiosity and perseverance. Let it guide you into dreams where discovery is endless and barriers are meant to be broken. Sweet dreams, explorer of radiant possibilities.